Hello, friends. I am Manish Anand. The RiceInAHills.com brings you a special episode on this Sunday. We are going to talk about the Arctic Circle. Yes, the Arctic Circle is facing the brunt of climate change. The glaciers are melting, the ice thickness is getting thinner, and the way things are happening, there is a projection that the Arctic Circle may melt by 2040. And why are we talking about Arctic Circle today? We are talking about Arctic Circle in the context of the ongoing Russian and Ukraine war. You know that Russian and Ukraine war has become a kind of never-ending strife with Russia pushing inside Ukraine and the Western countries led by the US, providing capital and the military ammunitions to Ukraine to fight back the Russian forces. But the war is not reaching a stage where it can be ended. Friends, there has been a lot of talks about Indian stand on the Russian and Ukraine war. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reiterated on a number of occasions at the international fora that India supports peaceful dialogue. There are commentators who have been wondering why India hasn't condemned Russian attack in Ukraine. And there may be a lot of commentaries about that. One is that we have a history of not being aligned to any of the camp in the world order. You know that since the time of Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, India had been taking a lead in the non-aligned movement, NAM. But right now, this is not an era of NAM, but there is definitely a revival of the Cold Era sort of bloc politics in the world affairs. Friends, the Arctic Circle is a reservoir of natural resources. In fact, there is an assessment that the Arctic Circle may be having 20% of the Earth's remaining natural resources. And by 2058, if it completely melts, then there can be a lot of tussle between the big powers of the world to grab these natural resources. Already, Russia and China have taken lead because of their geographical proximity. You know that Russia is a neighboring country of the Arctic Circle. So, in that context, is there any worry on the part of the Western countries that Russia and China may monopolize the Arctic Circle, which may have concerned India, and that is why India hasn't yet condemned Russia enough for its violation of the civil rights of the people in Ukraine? You never know. But one of my friends, Ramananda Sengupta, he has done a lot of research on this topic and he has published his researched article in the Indian Defense Review, where he argues that the Arctic Circle, besides being extremely resource rich, the region is expected to become ice-free by 2050 due to global warming. And that may open up a polar sea route, which would radically change global transport networks and by default trade and commerce. And he says, and he argues basically on the basis of some facts, that China may, with the help of Russia, monopolize this new Silk Route which will pass through the polar areas, and that may make India lose a lot of strategic interests, because the Malacca Strait in the Indian Ocean, by which most of the international trade takes place, may become irrelevant. So that's a very interesting aspect about the Arctic Circle. So we have given basic facts about the Arctic Circle in the PowerPoint, which you may be seeing on the PowerPoint. Arctic Circle, you know, there is an Arctic Council which governs the functioning of the Arctic Circle, has 13 non-Arctic states also, besides 8 member countries, which included Russia also. All the member countries have to obey the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. But the problem is that in the post-pandemic world order, the bigger powers are not following the United Nations conventions. Example is the South China Sea, where China is regularly violating most of the norms of the free ocean travel. The problem with India is that, in fact, India has more worries because though we have done a lot of research, we still don't have polar vehicles to tap the resources out there. So that may put us at a disadvantage. While China has taken a lot of lead. In fact, Ramananda Sengupta says that that Beijing, therefore, friends, Ramananda Sengupta in the same article argues that while India has done 41 research expeditions in the Antarctic and 13 in the Arctic, India is yet to build or acquire a polar research vehicle. That is in contrast to what China has done. They have already two polar research vehicles, and they are also in possession of a nuclear-powered icebreaker. Besides, a 100,000-ton semi-submersible heavy-lift vehicle. Indeed, China has procured some of these vehicles from Ukraine and is benefiting from Russia also, because before Russia invaded Ukraine, Russia and China had signed no limits friendship pact. And we have seen that while the Russian and Ukraine war has progressed, it is China which has basically given a kind of economic protection to Russia in the face of the US-led Western sanctions against Moscow. That is why, despite all the sanctions against Russia, nothing has worked, and in fact, Russia has benefited from the crude oil spike in the world, while the world economy is facing a lot of heartburn because of the Russian-Ukraine war, with inflation going much higher beyond the comfort level of the many countries. It is interesting to note what Sengupta further argues in the article, that what would be the impact if Arctic Circle melts because of the climate change, which is a reality. You know that the developed countries are not taking that decisive actions against climate challenges, which are essential. While the COP27 meeting is scheduled in Sharm el-Sheikh later this year, the world leader in this economic world leader, America, you know, when Donald Trump was the president, had taken America far away from climate change response by walking out from the Paris Declaration. In the event that climate change takes its logical turn and Arctic Circle melts, there would be disastrous impacts in several spheres, which may include even our monsoons, because most of our agriculture is dependent on monsoon, and that may jeopardize our food security, food and economic security, as Sengupta argues in the article. So therefore, the North and the South Pole and the Arctic Circle, in fact, they become quite critical for India to explore, to protect our strategic interests in future. So in this context, we can see that there is a sort of return of the great game that we had witnessed in the 19th and the earlier 20th century between the British India and Russia, those two big economic powers in those days, when the Indian and the Russian spies they fought to win over the sultanates in the trans-Himalayan regions, to gain the strategic depth in those regions because of the natural wealth that the region held. In this context, it becomes very important to note that the future is quite unpredictable, and we don't yet know what turn the world will take in the next few years, because the bigger powers, particularly China and Russia, they are not respecting the UN Charter. So that was our commentary on the Arctic Circle and its significance, and somewhat it tried to explain why India is making a fine balance in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, and while making sure that India doesn't antagonize Russia, while we make friendships with the European and with the European countries and America, because our economic advancements to a great extent depend on their resources and expertise. So this was what we had in the Raisina Hills Sunday broadcast for you. We will meet again next week with a special broadcast on a very special subject. If you like the video, do share with your friends and do subscribe the channel. Thank you so much.